my father was not a member of the church. He didn't know, and he didn't have that same train of thinking.
Right.
And he was really unhappy with my mom because she's awful. But he stayed. He stayed for me, he stayed for my siblings, and he saved my life.
Welcome to the Fearless Happiness Podcast, where we showcase phenomenal individuals who have overcome serious traumas, life obstacles, and challenges to find their own path to fearless happiness. Listen as Max Naist invites guests from all around the world to share their experiences and spread strength, hope, and faith. This is the Fearless Happiness Podcast, and this is Max Naist.
All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. And yes, I'm coming back to you today with another special and amazing guest, Sabrina Capper. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name, but
You
I'm
did
going to
not.
let you enter. What I like to do is have you introduce yourself to my audience, Sabrina, who you are, what it is you do, and then we're going to rock and roll.
Okay, well, hello everyone. I'm Sabrina Capper. I'm an author and an artist. We're here today discussing my debut novel, which is a true crime memoir titled Licking the Knife.
So, like, I know when you said that, like, everybody's going, licking the knife. Ooh, this is going to be good, right?
Good
Okay.
title, right?
Right. And, I mean, you're the first. Well, I mean, every one author I've had has shared their story, but like the first one to tell my audience, right? Like a true crime memoir. So let's go back and talk about that. So go back as far as you want, but I want you to tell the audience, like, because they're already wondering, like myself, where that came from, but the
Mhm.
challenges you went through growing up and what led you to write your book and how you got through all that and what brought you to where you are today, right? Because I
Ooh,
don't know if about you and we know some people take the wrong turn and they're not here with us today, right? Because, and I'm going to tell you, because I've already researched it, right? She's going to tell you an amazing story, everybody. So pay attention and take it away, Sabrina.
sure. That was a whole lot of question to answer. So I'll start at the book and we can go from there. So
Awesome.
I left off with the title, which is Licking the Knife. It is from a line
Excuse me.
poet that says, when you are not fed love on a silver spoon, you learn to lick it off knives. And when I read it, it really hit home because I grew up in a very difficult family, but as you can see, it's a story with a happy ending, at least so far.
Right.
I am happy now. And so I really feel like this book and my story is about how I learned to live life and to love on the edge of a knife.
That is, I love that quote, right? It's true
Mm.
though. If now that I think about it, not that I've come from a difficult background. I mean, if you, but in the field, in the work that I do, I hear a lot of stories of families where, as they say, they were very dysfunctional, right?
Yes.
And now I understand why, you know, why some of us that are addicted, right, do the things we do because we didn't get the love. I'm not speaking. I'm just
No, actually, if you don't mind, I most people that I interview are not interested in talking about that, but um I have a brother and sister. They have difficult stories too. We grew up in the
right.
same home. And they both have struggled with addiction for 30 years. And I didn't. I took a different path, and our empathy for each other is non-existent. But I think part of what I'm doing with this book, which is basically talking about it, like talking about all the awfulness that was going on in our home, gave us a pathway to acknowledge that maybe we were dealing with the same things in different ways.
Right.
And that empathy, you had mentioned earlier that you have a past there too. And it is very eye-opening to understand why addiction like that exists when you're
Right.
trying to hide secrets like we're hiding.
Right. And there's a truth to that saying that says we're only as sick as our secrets, right? And
Yes.
sorry to distract, but you said something that was that I found very eye-opening too, right? It's like you can come from the same family and the same upbringing, but every individual has a different perspective of what happened during those times, right? So let's
Yes.
focus on what you went through, right?
Okay.
Because it's understandable, right? Like everybody has their story, but tell the
Yeah.
audience what happened as you were growing up, Sabrina,
Yeah.
like led to the book, right? So they're all probably wondering, like me, what is
I was going to say it's such
the
a complex story. And
right,
I will say, I am also a story collector. I love media and stories of all kinds in all different kinds of genres. And I've never heard one like mine. And it's just got a lot of different elements. And today in therapy, because I'm a big proponent of therapy too,
yep,
um, I was talking about how I had everything from the Menendez brothers and everything from Keep Sweet and Obey and everything from the uh the Ruby Frankie documentary. And so it was like I watched all these documentaries about dysfunctional families
right,
and realized you put all of those problems together and you had our family. What drew me to write the book was the journey of not only spilling the beans, but also coming to terms with what it means to recognize that you survived something like that, or I survived something like that. And I did take different choices. So to survive that level of abuse, torture, insanity,
right,
um, I am neurodivergent. So that means I talk about in the book, like my psyche is fractured, and I've done a lot of work to work it together. My sister turned to substances very early, and my brother and her were very close, so he did as well. And as we've gone through our lives, we've never really been siblings because of the choices that we made to deal
right,
with the situations we couldn't talk about. And though we don't have pathways for relationships moving forward, I don't harbor animosity or vengeance for children making choices that were coping with awfulness.
right. So tell my audience like what that awfulness was, right? So they get an
Yeah.
idea of what you've been through, right? Because right, well, and like just so everybody knows, and you've heard me say this, everybody, right? Like
I was going to say,
in
I
addiction, there's a lot of history of trauma that has like one of the
yeah,
root problems, but like you, I know people that have grown up in that environment and chose the quite the opposite, right?
yes, it was as far as you could get. Like I was a
Right.
straight A student. I
Okay.
was captain of the cheerleading team. I was a model church going girl. Like I was as close to perfection as I was able to achieve. Um, the reason I was in that path, or the reason I chose that, was because our family, I'll put it this way, I thought I had escaped. I thought I had gotten out. And I mean that in every sense of a word, from a cult to an organized crime situation. And in March 2023, they came to my house and bang the doors down with my husband and son inside. And from that moment on, I knew that I had to tell people what were going on, and no one would ever believe it because it was so fantastical. And so I wrote it in a book, and it took me about 3 months. And I worked to find a publisher, and then I went to his bedside and I confronted him and said, I wrote a book and I told every secret and every story that I saw, and it's at a publisher, and you can never keep me silent again, even if you kill me right now.
Right.
And I recorded it and I posted it on TikTok.
Wow.
And so that video is my first video that I posted that like really went viral, and people resonated. They heard it was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. I shook all over and I sound like a little kid. It's so humbling to hear. But people heard the honesty.
Right.
People heard, if you've ever had an abuser, you know what it takes to confront them.
Right.
And if he could have moved, he would have killed me. Like, it was just nothing but rage on his face.
Right.
But he couldn't because he was dying. He died 4 days later. And he died knowing that everyone was going to find out. And they
Right.
have.
So that's, I mean,
And
that
well,
one takes a lot of bravery, a lot of courage. So I
thank you.
applaud you for that. But my audience like me is going to go like, explain to them what you mean about that. Like what led, I mean, without, we could be
Okay,
here
well,
all day talking about the story, right? But
I was
like,
going to say, so I already wrote a book detailing the first 10 years, and I stopped with the first murder. So you you don't believe it until you experience it. And I will tell you, that is what's challenging and unique about my book is the chapters about the abuse are from the perspective of me when I was 4 or 5 or 6 years old. So it's all from a children's perspective.
gotcha.
And it becomes so obvious why the abuse was so easily hidden or ignored or outright suppressed once it got really bad.
Right.
And it's because when a kid tells you that their tummy hurts, you don't ask, well, have you gone to the bathroom today? Or you don't ask, did someone put something in there?
Right.
You don't ask those questions. And even if you did, what teacher is going to deal with that, or what church leader, or what friend's parent? You know, there are also situations in which I was forced to watch them kill people in front of me. And it was a move of power to not only cement my grandfather's position as a white male patriarch, but it also established his dominance over the females in my family. And it's the next half of the book, the next book will be more about those years in which those those I don't know what else to call them, sacrifices, or his proclivities got to a point where it's very fragmented still. And it'll take some more time to really
Right.
talk about that. But I would say I've never heard a kid's story worse than mine. And that's saying something, because I'm a good researcher.
Right. And here's the thing though, like I'm seeing it as I'm looking at you and telling everybody. So like you heard, so this is your grandfather we're speaking of,
Yes.
who perpetuated the abuse and the trauma. And because you mentioned cult and
Mhm.
organized crime.
Mhm.
So I know the audience like me is going, can you explain that a little bit, what you mean by your grandfather? Was he a cult leader? And
Yes.
was he part of organized crime? And is that how he used fear
Yes.
in the family to keep everybody under control?
Yes.
Right? Because you mentioned about
Yeah.
witnessing murders,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
that is going to be a
Yes to
lifetime
all the
journey,
things you just said. You
right?
heard it all right. It's literally that unbelievable. It is it's not as uncommon as you think.
Oh, exactly. And that's what I mean, that's true if you
I
think about it,
mean,
because
I
until it
hate it
comes
when I
out,
say
they keep things under wrap really good when they're in that power. You know what I mean?
they do, and it's also not always kept under wraps. Like, I don't think it's a secret that there is a problem in religion where patriarchal men are seen as divine. Like,
I know what you mean. Is right.
period. Like, that's a common theme in religion in general. I think that we don't, or we have not had a way to talk about these kind of things on a large scale very long. So,
Right.
like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I could not have done what I did on YouTube or on Facebook because their model no longer creates influencers. They promote influencers.
Right.
And that is a
Excuse
very
me.
big shift in the zeitgeist. And so TikTok came along, and all of a sudden, news was a whole nother level. And yes, it was used for a lot of controversial content, is what
Right.
I'll say.
Right.
Okay. But the flip side of that is someone like me can say what I'm going to say, and I'm protected because I do not have any expectations of legal ramifications. I mean, there haven't been any. I don't have any evidence that that would ever happen.
Right.
Um, I also am not expecting any monetary compensation from anybody. I'm like, I literally just want to stop these men from being around little girls. That's it. That's my whole goal. If I can find some bodies, super. If I can identify victims, awesome. But what I would really rather do is just stop letting kids be around these people.
Right.
That's it. I'm like, I am accomplishing that without anybody else's help because I know people have contacted me and said, "Oh my God,
Right.
I'm so glad you told me. I don't want this guy to be my kid's Sunday school teacher. I don't want this woman, being around my granddaughters." And I'm like, you should know. You should be able to make that choice as a parent.
Absolutely. Right. Like, who wants their children to grow up? Because which just leads me to ask this. So, like, where was mom and dad in all this? Were they that afraid that they let this happen to you?
So my mother participated. She's
Oh, so she was an active participant in
yes,
the
yes,
the bad stuff, let's say.
yes, yes. Um, and my dad didn't know. He honestly, he was the best parent he could have been in the situation we were in. He never knew, but he grew up in a broken home himself, and he knew how to ignore signs of abuse. And when you grow up thinking that's just the way it is, like if I think with kindness and compassion, that's what I think happened. I don't think he ever saw it because he was not ever educated on,
Right. What to
you
look
know.
for and
Yeah, I
how to
mean,
handle.
I hate to say that, but, like, men aren't going through that class at school, like, there's more, I think, of a conversation of not hitting, but how many of them are wonderful heroes that they don't even know what to look for,
Right.
you know, and that's kinda how I feel about my dad. Like, I talk about it very specifically in the book that, he was my hero, and in my mind, they would have killed him if he found out. Like, there's no doubt in my mind they would have killed him. I feel like I was an incredible daughter because I protected him, and he was an incredible dad because he loved me. He was the only person I had.
Right.
And I'm like, I know that's not traditional, and it's not maybe what people think of as, the best dad or the best parent, but I'm like, man, we have a good relationship. I sure do love him. And
Right.
when I went through this, he held my hand. He's not the most emotionally responsive man, but God, he held my hand every moment. Him and his wife, who has become like a mother to me, like they are so uncomfortable with emotional wildness that comes out of my face. But dear God, what fortitude and kindness to just sit in it with me.
And that's, I believe, his way of making amends to you for not doing
100%.
something. You know what I mean? Is to he knows he can't change the past, but he can be there for you moving forward, like you
Yep.
said, by holding your hand through some difficult situations. Maybe even is as uncomfortable for him as possible, but that's how he's trying to make it up to you. Right. And because we're so, as children, right, we're so impressionable, right?
Mhm.
That's when we form our habits and how we're going to look at the world, right? And from what I'm hearing, I mean, you didn't have a good head start because of certain people in your life. But I mean, I got to tell you, everybody, like Sabrina's here, and I could see some of the pain that's coming back. But you should see the big smile she gets because you know what I mean. She's telling her truth, and as difficult as it may be for her, like I am honored that you're here sharing this story, right? Because
Yeah.
right. I see too many right documentaries on stuff like that where the children are like and trust me, it drives me crazy when it's the kids that are the innocent children that are used like they're throwaway. You know what I mean?
It's especially women. Like in I was in a patriarchal religion, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. And when I say organized crime, you know what I'm talking about
Yeah.
because that's what they are. I mean, they've got more money than any company on in this nation. Like, that's ridiculous. There is no female in any decision-making practice, and they have the autonomy to create back doors and pathways to have conversations and deal with situations outside of the realm of reality and what's going on in, business or the economy. And my father was not a member of the church. And so he didn't know and he didn't have that same train of thinking.
Right.
He was really unhappy with my mom because she's awful. But he stayed. He stayed for me, he stayed for my siblings, and he saved my life.
Right. Well, now I correlate the cult with uh organized crime, right? Because I think
Yep.
when you said that and what you just said about the church, right? And
Yeah.
where I'm not here and Susan's not here to bash any religion specifically, but I think of Warren Jeffs, right? And you hear about
Yes.
it today that he's like still running that part,
Yeah.
from
From
jail.
prison.
Right. And
Yeah.
then that makes you think of like the Italian mafia, where like some of them still do it, or,
Yes.
street gangs that are in prison that run the streets from prison. Right. It's the same principle. It's the same thing. But,
It is
those are
it is organized
horrible.
crime.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Organized crime is organized crime. Right. No matter who you say you are, or part of
I was gonna
whatever.
say, I have knowledge. I know of third-party goods being sold and trafficked on the side. I know like young girls they were being taken all over the nation for men to inspect for purity. There are women in Oregon talking about the same uh, procedures being done to them that I had done to me. And I'm like, that's protocol. That is a handbook. That is standardization. Like I work let me phrase that. I have worked in Fortune 500 companies for most of my career. I know what standard organizational structure looks like, and I have worked with enough of our legal teams and our human resources teams to know what you can skirt and what you can't. And I'm like, for a religious organization to have divine influence over who gets to be in the position of power with no accountability,
Right.
I don't care what you call it, but
Right.
it's not healthy for
Right.
productive behavior.
And it's funny that we're talking about this, right? Because um I grew up with a friend whose family were part of the Mormon church, right? I love them, great people, right? Um, but him, we all, as they would call him, right? I hear people call him a Jack Mormon because he was into partying, like, we all were in high school and stuff. And I remember like when I first met him, it was like you couldn't drink Coke or Pepsi or anything like that, right? And then one time I come over to his house and now there's Pepsi everywhere, right? And I'm like, wait a minute, what happened? Well, one of our elders bought Pepsi, so we're allowed to now. And I just like that was one of those things I just went, what? Oh, so now that the elder owns Pepsi, we can drink caffeine or what? You know what I mean? At the time, but but here, I mean, you've gone through so much, especially as a child, right? And as you're going through this, and I know my audience is now to put the
I was just say, tell
connect the
me what they're
dots,
thinking. I want to
right?
answer your questions, and don't be afraid.
No,
I'm
no, I'm
I'm
getting there.
okay.
So they're connecting the dots, right? And
Okay.
so we already know that the abuse you went through started young, like which it
30.
does in a lot of the we hear about, right? In those cults or so as you're going through your formative years, you're getting into junior high, high school. When did it for you said enough is enough, right? Like
Ha. Yes.
I
That's Now
I'm
wait
not
a
going to
minute. Are
let
we
these.
getting into spoilers? Because that's the finale of the book.
Okay, we'll wait till the end for
Want me
this.
to tell you?
We can, but like,
Because
what?
it's
What were that?
okay.
I know, but what was the process for you when you finally said, "Despite my family, I'm going to take care of me because I got to change this somehow"? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it
Okay.
does. How about this? There is a specific event that happened.
Okay.
It is in my book, it's called The Big Awful. And that's what I called it because I was 9. Um, After that event, I was, to be 100% honest, I broke. I broke in a million pieces. And my trauma was stored on these little pieces, like little islands that just floated away. And I went, from now on, there is, there has to be a different me, because I I needed a way to survive that didn't involve illegal substances or illegal
Right.
actions.
Right.
So substances, killing my parents, something crazy. So I was very, I have a very high functioning brain. I have a eidetic memory, kind of like Sheldon, although mine is for puzzles. And
Yes.
so I was very interested in how I could put my psyche back together. So in sixth and seventh grade, I uh, took we had you may remember this because you might be old enough. There was a school program called The Voyage of the Mimi, and it was about ocean animals and humpback whales. And every science class, you would watch one of these videos about this captain and this kid on a voyage in the sea, and they would teach you about all of the marine life. And it was a government program sponsored by Reagan's, I think. And and in it, we learned about octopus, and octopus have 8 legs that have 8 brains, and then there's one central. So I organized my mind to have pieces, and I basically lived that some pieces were for school, and some people were for home, and some were for church or that phase. And I would kind of live these lives. And as I went through college and I had to, it would be when I'm home, I'm one person. And when I'm living my life in college or my career or whatever I was doing, I was a
Right.
different person. And it wasn't a personality change. I didn't have a full split where I had accents and things like that.
Right.
I just
Right.
really compartmentalized well,
I was just
where
gonna say that.
I would do things and then just completely shove it over and go and do something else in my life that I wanted. And I built a whole gorgeous, beautiful life for myself. Um, and I finally started leaving the family, and I cut off contact a year before they came for me.
So
You see where
no,
the scope it just
I
gets
love it,
bigger and
right?
bigger.
Right. I love it though, because I get what you're saying, right? You had to compartmentalize certain phases of your life, right? Like you had to have a certain personality for being at home, right?
Yes.
One for work, one for church, right? Yeah. And because when you said that, right, I'm thinking, okay, Sybil is starting to come together here,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, believe me, I thought the same thing. Like
Right.
I was so scared. I was like, oh my God, am I DID? Do I have multiple personalities? I don't. Like my therapist is like, I don't know how you didn't, but I didn't. I just have little bits of myself that are very, very separate.
Well, I think, and this is my opinion, right? Despite the upbringing in the church you were in, you still, I think God protected you by giving you that strength to do that with, with your how you showed up in life at that time. I think, I mean, I believe God,
I think I think God, if they exist, is they either didn't know or didn't care. And either way, that's not somebody I want to believe in for my salvation going forward. And I don't really need eternity. So I'm okay just saying, like, I put a lot of kindness into the world. I am so lucky that the people who are coming to my signings, it's been wild. Like, it's been people I knew in second grade who were like, "You stood up for me against a bully," or
right,
I helped them pick up their papers in the hallway. Like, I put kindness into the world, and I think that's what saved me. I think my dad sticking it out in shitty circumstances and being miserable saved me. Like, I think it honestly, I truly believe in the power of investing in someone else and investing in kind people.
right. I'm with you 100%. I'm all about
Yeah.
being kind, right? That's why a
Yeah.
friendly wave or a smile, even if
Yeah.
someone cuts me
I
off,
was
right?
going to
I
say right back
smile.
where you started.
Hi.
I'm
Go
with you.
ahead. You can have that whole lane. I don't care. Right. Like, I hope you have a wonderful day. Right. Or opening the door for someone or,
Yeah.
right? A smile and right because I mean, I know
Just
you had to
but
protect yourself as you were growing up. Um and going through that, right? Like I think the strength, even though your dad probably wasn't like the most affectionate or right, but just the
mm,
fact that he stuck by your side that whole time,
the
knowing
fact that
because
he just said, "I believe you."
right,
Like, he knew me all 45 years of my life, and we had, our ups and downs just like every family, but
right.
to hold my hand and watch me fall apart and say, "I believe you," he got, like, the gold pass for life.
Well, that's right, right? He was there when
I
you were
mean,
falling apart, and I think that's what helped you come back together, right?
yeah, there's
To
just
become
nothing better than kindness like that.
right.
There's
Well,
just
that's to
it
me,
just
that's
feels
not just
nice.
kindness, but it's a lots of love for his daughter. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I'm
And
lucky, very lucky.
right. And so you're writing this book, and because we all want to get to that part where we want to relive when you're in that room with your grandpa, right? Like, and
Oh, yes, I will give
right,
you every detail.
right. But so, like, are you still in the area where this happened, or did you move? Okay, you moved away,
No,
obviously, right?
I moved away in, 2012. I was recruited by a company, and they offered me a substantial raise that, they could my grandfather didn't have enough influence to get me
R-
kicked out of it. And so I got to take the job and move to, Dallas. So, my whole family's in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay,
Uh, Once I got out and I became financially independent, like, to a point where I didn't have to worry about, possible legal expenses in
right,
protecting myself. I then went about putting plans in place to get my niece out, and then I put plans in place to cut off uh, contact entirely. Um, Once I did that, it if anybody knows what it's like to leave a high pressure organization, like it's like trying to quit the gym, right?
right,
Like they're just not gonna let you
right.
go
They are going to
because
try everything in their
you
power
are
to
way
like,
too much of an asset
right,
if you just walk out that door one more time. And I was the secret keeper. I was the document keeper. I was the executor on everybody's estate. Like I was the next in line. And for me to exit, there are people fighting over who's going to be at the top. My aunts and my mother are clawing each other's eyes out for property and for
right,
money and all of this kooky stuff. And he just couldn't let me go. He just couldn't let me not be afraid of him one more time. And
right,
so I cut all contact, but my aunt called and said, "Hey, he's about to die. You need to know." And I'm like, "Okay." So I called my best friend, my ride or die.
right,
I'm like, "I'm coming to town and I just need you to hold your hand while I do this." And she's like, "Okay. What time do I pick you up?"
right,
Like, she's that girl. And she did. I showed up at her house. I hyperventilated and had a panic attack. She drove me to the nursing home. I had a panic attack. I went inside, had a panic attack. I confronted him. You can hear that video. I had a panic attack. And then he looked like he was about to kill me. And then he smiled and he laughed. And he said, "Who would believe you?" And bye. I got to go. I'm
right,
done. And from that moment on, he died 4 days later and he was the chess master. So I have ideas of what they're doing, but I don't know.
right. I'm saying because I think, do you ever worry about what they're trying to plan and
Oh, yeah. I
right?
mean,
Because
the reason I did this the way I did it is because I thought there was a good chance that I would die. If I walked in and said this to my grandfather, somebody would just kill me
right,
because that's the way they operate. And when I walked out of there, I sat in my friend's car and I was like, move, just leave, just leave. I was so scared people were following us. I was so afraid, but I also felt so powerful. And I'm like, I didn't die. And then I posted the videos and they didn't kill me and they didn't call me, they didn't shut me down with some crazy lawsuit or send people after my son. Like I was prepared for all of that.
Right.
And it's been silent. They have been nasty with, fake accounts and stuff, but I expected that.
Yeah. I mean,
The president of the United States gets that. Like, I'm like, everybody gets hate nowadays. Like, I'm not worried about that. I'm shocked from what I can tell. They just look like they're just living their lives. They're not worried about it at all. And I'm like, people are still taking pictures of them with little kids and posting it on the internet. And I'm like,
that's
I can only do so much,
right.
like I can't make you protect your kids, but there's definitely, and now we're back to the TikTok thing, because now these kids, this is out there forever. And when they're 18, 19, 20, and they start going to therapy and they go back and look at their parents' posts and go, why were you supporting this person?
Right.
Like, there's a whole nother level of accountability that has just arisen on the internet. And it is when you put your opinion out there and you fight for someone and you're fighting for them their whole career, like it's in 100 years, nobody ever said a bad word about my grandfather publicly. There was a lot behind the scenes, but nothing publicly. And I'm like, I'm the
Right.
first one. And I'm shocked that I'm still alive, but I'm more shocked that no one else has come out, because I know he was hurting other kids.
See, and that's probably because of the fear that you overcame that some people can't. You know what I mean? They're stuck in that fear.
Yeah,
And if, I mean,
I know it
I
breaks my
know,
heart.
and I know you're probably their hero because they're so afraid that to say anything, right?
Yeah,
Because, and it seems like with what you went through, what you went through and other things I've seen in the world, right? Like child trafficking, right? Sexual trafficking, all that stuff is really coming to the forefront. Like people are getting exposed for the nasty things they are doing. And I know what you said, but
I
like for
know.
me, it's like God help you because we're coming after you. And that's
Man, I hope so. And
I shouldn't say we or like in me, but people are coming after you. You know what I mean? Like
to
people are
hear to hear, and I hope you hear this the right way, to hear a man's indignation over another man's behavior like that is so like it's so refreshing. It's so it's like balm to my soul. Because where I grew up, men protected the men. It was, you're a liar. What were you wearing? What were you do? It was always that narrative. And we're talking when I'm 5,
right,
short
right.
was your dress. Like that's the kind of narrative I get. But, no, they're all in the same club. So I never heard men of, position and authority be like, no, that behavior is not okay.
Oh,
That's
well,
not right. No,
right.
no.
Right. Well, I mean, this is coming from a father, a grandfather. Like, like when I see my granddaughters, because they live downstairs, they come up, right? My granddaughter and my older one down there, we have a thing, right? If she comes in the room and she sees me, she cannot leave the room without giving me a hug, right? Like, and I think to myself, right? Like I get goosebumps. Like, how can any person, especially a man, hurt an innocent child? Like I get very emotional about that because I've seen childbirths, right, of my own children, and I think like, how can someone hurt these precious things that come into the world that have done no harm to anybody?
Yeah.
But these guys think it's okay to have their way with these children, whether it's girls, boys, right? And that's why I support what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Thank
100%.
you.
And people like that do need to be exposed, right? Because you've this is where it fits, right? Like, this is where, like, your resilience right now, this is, you're showing my audience, no matter what you've gone through, you can come out of it better than you were when you know, when you started. And
It feels better to say something. It really does.
absolutely, right? Because we know that we're only as sick as our secrets, as we talked about before.
Yeah.
And you know, the reason I stayed stuck in my addiction for so long is because I kept secrets, right? I didn't want to
And you
tell.
just don't wanna feel those feelings.
Absolutely,
I get
right?
it. I
Right?
totally
And,
get it.
you know,
I didn't suffer from it, but I absolutely understand that feeling. Like, I would do mine was achievement. I would do anything to make sure I didn't have to go, "I have to go back. I have to
right,
be back there. I have to, I'm failing," or whatever.
right.
I
But
would
a lot
do
of
anything
good things
I
have
can.
come out, right? Because
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
you met
well,
your
now
husband. Well, you've met your husband and your son,
yes,
right? So
yes,
talk about
my
that day though a little bit. Let's go back, right? Like when they
okay,
came
okay.
knocking on the door, like,
Yes.
right, because you were a part of it. Did they come because they thought you were a part of that, or did they? What was that about?
So the cover story was that what they told my husband is they were coming, or that they came here to get some documents and some money that they were owed from my niece. What they really came here for was so that my grandfather could intimidate me into keeping silent till he died. He was very afraid that since I cut off communication, that I was going to tell someone what was going on. Because at the time, I mean, his business was still running to the best of my knowledge. And so I think he was very, very worried when I cut communication. And so he came here. They showed up at the door. They banged on the windows. I describe it in pretty horrid detail, but after they finally left, I came inside and just crumpled. I just could it was like I just couldn't function. And so I was I think I've seen it in movies before where you just kind of shut down and like
Mhm.
you can't I would probably say it's like after you come out of that detox. Like it feels like you're detoxing from all of the lies and the secret, like you can't hide it anymore. Like
Right,
it is what it is. And it took me, a couple of weeks of really trying to keep it together. But like it took me one session with my therapist to be like, she was like, "You're gonna have to tell me whatever it is you're trying to not tell me." And I'm like, "No, I don't want to do that." And she's like, "No, you're gonna have to."
right,
And you finally just come to that point. Like I think it's the same point that everybody goes through where you go, "I'm not gonna live this life anymore." And it doesn't matter what you're saying that about. You have to be the person to decide, and no one can make that timeline push forward for you.
yeah,
Nobody can do it until you're ready to do it. And then once you make that commitment and you go, okay, I'm just going to fucking deal with whatever comes with this whole thing,
right.
then you go, ugh.
Yeah, I
That's
know that
I feel
feeling.
like I was just vomiting stories for months and months. I went to a facility, I got help, which was no picnic, but absolutely worth that time and investment in myself. And I came home and I rested and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I am going to try to invest in myself. I took a year off of my career, two at this point, to write a book. I have another book coming out in a few months that will be a picture book about emotions,
Right,
with my original artwork in it that is just fun and whimsical and weird. All the things that I love.
right.
And then I've already got the outline for my next book. And I'm like, I want to live the life I want to live. I fought this hard for it. So
Yeah,
this is what I'm doing now.
I
And
love it. I love it,
yeah,
right? Because you just described the, like, what I went through in my 4 step, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing.
right. I did the first time, it was like, I'm not ready, right? And you could totally
Yeah,
tell because I was in my head, I'm telling my sponsor this, but I'm not telling him that. I'll tell him
yeah,
that, but I'm not going to tell him this,
yeah,
right? So it took 4 relapses later to finally break me down and go, you need to tell someone everything, right? And then I did. So when I went through it again, I did the same thing with him. I just went, bleh, you know what I
yep.
mean? Wrote
Do you
everything
feel
down, went
like
through it.
you said relapses. Do you ever feel like you were kind of practicing what it was gonna be like when you really did it?
I wouldn't say no. Mine, what happened for me wasn't that I was practicing for what it was going to be really like. It was like I was testing. There are so many things for me, right? Like, okay, there's my sponsor, right? But I'm going to see if he's going to stick with me, kind of thing, right? Like, I'm going to
Yes,
be that kid. So I'm
yes,
going to go relapse
yes,
and I'm going to
yes,
watch if he's there, right?
yeah,
And of course, after the fourth one, he was still there
yeah.
and he with open arms, no judgment. And I was like, okay, I got to do things differently, right? But see, like I know what you went through, but for me, then it was like this, let's say a power greater than myself was protecting me because I
Yep.
could have went either way, right? Keep going until I die of an overdose or go to prison, or I can believe in something that's better than me, greater than me,
Yeah.
and do the work, right? Because now I'm here almost 22 years later, having
And
this
you know what
awesome.
that moment was, right?
That moment was when, so when I
But
relapsed,
you
I
felt it. You felt it in your brain.
and in
You
my
feel
heart.
this moment where you go, "I make a choice."
Yeah, that
You
was
just
in my
make
head and
a
my
choice.
heart. That was the first time
Yeah,
they had aligned
yeah.
totally. You know what I mean? Where I knew. So I surrendered. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do whatever you say. I promised you. You keep me sober. I'll do the work. And, but it, you get those moments where like somebody steps in and you go, wow, like that was weird. Right.
Yeah.
Like the director of the facility who never comes to the place on a Sunday, but comes knocking at my door after and I'm like, and I didn't lie. I told her, yes, Sue, I did it again. And she gave me this big bear hug and said, be on your way, come back in 3 days, test clean. And here I am, almost 22 years
Yeah.
later, right? With you having this like amazing conversation where you're telling the world like what you went through and how you've healed through that and how you continue to heal through that, right? Because as we know, this journey in life, it's a process.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to fall down. You got to get back up and you got to brush yourself off and keep going, right? The famous Rocky line from Rocky 5, where he's talking to his son. He says, it's not about how much you get knocked down, how hard you get hit. It's about how much you get back up despite getting hit hard and you keep moving forward, right? And it
You sound
sounds
a
like
lot like
you,
my dad.
right? It's like you and me have
How he
been,
sounds.
we've had the 1-2s, the uppercuts, right? But we're still here and we're still going. So it's an honor totally for
Well, this
you to
was
be here.
delightful. Thank you so much. And Max, I appreciate your time and interest in my book, and I really hope that
No,
maybe
we're going to bring you
we'll
back
get
because
some
there's so much more
information.
we can get into, right? I would
I
love for you to come back.
so much more that is coming out. I like I said, I do have 2 more books coming out. I have a documentary crew that is working with local law enforcement to maybe work through something there. So I
Awesome.
am I am really looking to do good things in the next few months.
You're doing great things. So now I get to ask you those questions I was talking about before we
Yes.
started. So I wrote a book, as you can see, Fearless
Mhm.
Happiness, right? We're going to start with fearless. So what does fearless mean to you? And how does that show up in your life now today?
You know, I just had a conversation last night with my husband in which I said, fear is just being uncomfortable. It's just being uncomfortable. It is knowing something is going to be really uncomfortable experience and you commit to that discomfort for a purpose. That's fearless to me. Like I have been knocking in my feet, crying, snot running down my face, afraid of a weak old man laying in his bed, you know, But anyone who has had trauma knows it's the scariest thing in the world. It's just being uncomfortable. It was 5 minutes of my life, and it's one of the bravest things I've ever done for myself. And man, you can't be more fearless than that, right?
I absolutely, I agree. Wow, I love that, right? Being uncomfortable. And some of us get uncomfortable for a while, but that means, we're working on stuff. So I
I
love it.
was gonna say it's nobody wants it all the time.
Right.
Just every now and then, it's okay to be uncomfortable just for a few moments.
Right. I love
Do
it.
something that scares you.
I love, see, you hear that every day? Do something that scares you.
Oh, I do at least 5 things before breakfast, so
Right. Right. I love it. So that leads me to my next question, happiness. As you can see, I put the Y in there. What does happiness mean to you, Sabrina? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis today?
happiness means relaxed. Right now, being able to relax and not be worried about what's going on, hiding, processing, just being present, being relaxed is the most happy that I am nowadays. And that happens in the pool, in front of the TV, that happens in the car singing with my husband. Like it happens everywhere. And I love that.
I love it. I love it. Well, like I said, this has been one very amazing time for me, and I know for the
Yeah,
audience. So I
thank you.
appreciate it, and I do want to bring you back. But
Okay.
um, what I'm going to get at now is if someone wants to get a hold of you, Sabrina, right, ask you questions or get your book, and
Yes.
may be in the same situation, and now you're their hero, and they need someone to reach out to so they can pick your brain and figure out how they can get out of a situation like that. How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I am very active on social. TikTok is my preferred. If you DM me, I will reply. If you like and comment, like I have a great community of people that are interacting with my content on there. They are nice, they are supportive, they are lovely, and I love TikTok. I am also on Meta, so Facebook and Instagram. I usually post a day or two afterwards there. I have a YouTube that I'm working on. I'm trying to put some more robust content like interviews and stuff there. I'm working through that. And I also have a website. So it's super easy to find me. Just look for my name. Or if you go on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, local booksellers, just ask them for Licking the Knife.
All right. I love it. I love it. Wow, this has been an amazing, amazing time. Like I said,
I was going to
Sabrina,
say, I've had so much fun, Max. Thank you.
you this has been a very fun time and very educated and just everything, right? Like, thank you so much for being here, but you're not off the hook just yet,
Okay.
right? I get to ask you my favorite question that I ask of
Ooh.
all my guests at the end, and it goes like this. So, what is the one piece of advice you could give my audience to help them grow as human beings and become better people?
Oh, gosh. 1%. If you can do something at 1%, you're doing it. Like when I went to the facility, I made myself a deal. I'm like, I'm going to be here for 30 days. That's my commitment, or 28 days or whatever. I'm like, if I can improve 1% every day, sometimes it might be 5 and sometimes I might go back 2, but if I can just improve 1% every day, 30% worth the investment. And I was 90, like not better, but accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. So I am a person who absolutely encourages people. You don't have to achieve everything today. Just do 1% today. If you do 1%, you can build on that tomorrow. Then it's 2, then it's 50.
Right. I love it. See, everybody, I've said this before, 1%. It's all you got to do. Right.
Yeah, that's
So
it. That's it.
Sabrina just validated it for all of you
Ugh,
guys and
Max knows
ladies
what
and
he's talking
gentlemen
about.
out there. So awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Sabrina. Well, you
Thanks.
heard her, everybody. If Sabrina made you think, if she taught you something, if she brought a smile to your face, and my famous, if she made you go, I like that. please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review so more people can find the podcast. So again, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Until next time.
Are you tired of being weighed down by life's traumas and struggles? Join the Fearless Happiness lifestyle and let us guide you toward a brighter future. Explore our past podcast episodes and get a copy of the Fearless Happiness book to ignite your inner strength. If you or someone you love is battling addiction or facing challenges related to unresolved trauma, know that we are here for you. Visit maxnijst.org, maxnijst.org, and take the first steps toward finding your fearless happiness. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of Fearless Happiness.